It is 2 o'clock. We absolutely honor your time, and we will finish up promptly by 3. So I'm going to get things going, and I know some other folks will probably chime in as we go, but they'll be responsible for catching up. And just so you know, well, we're not going to worry about all the chickens. We're going to lose some along the way. But we are recording the call, so anyone who doesn't make it can catch up really easily, and we'll also take some good notes. So my name is Bill Kenny, and my sort of job in this program, at least at this point, is to sort of help facilitate these calls as much as possible and help everybody get a good voice in terms of the development, in terms of where the National Invention Convention is going. What I'd like to do is kind of share a couple things, and then I'm going to pass at least the early part here over to Danny for some comments. So what we're going to work to accomplish today is a few things. Danny's going to overview the National Invention Convention, just make sure we're kind of all on the same sort of even understanding of what's going on. We're going to talk about the event format itself, and we're really going to look for your input in that area as much as possible. We're very much at the formation stage in terms of figuring out the various elements of the couple of day event. We may or may not get to talking in detail about the student selection process, but that's certainly something over the next couple of weeks we're going to want to get to. And then we'll talk about sort of next actions and our next date of meeting. Our goal is to get together every other week, at least for the time being, and then as we sort of get formed, we'll make that more sort of put more space in between. But we really appreciate all of your interest and engagement. We are very excited about building the National Invention Convention into very much a hallmark event that celebrates all the great work that's going on in each region and each state, and certainly helps promote the great work that you all are doing. So with that, at the moment the sound on the line sounds good. We may, at some point, if there is background noise, we may ask for folks who aren't speaking to mute, but for the moment we sound real good. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Danny, who's going to talk to us about the National Invention Convention and give us a good overview in terms of the vision. So Danny, do you want to, actually, you know what, Danny, why don't we just have the folks that that chimed in as I was going say who they are. So could the folks who chimed in who haven't said who their name is yet, could you let us know who you are?
Dawn Bola from the University of Iowa.
Welcome, Dawn.
Hi, Helen came on the line too.
Hello, Helen. How are you?
I'm good.
Susan is here.
And Susan?
Yep.
Excellent. And anyone else? Super.
Okay.
Do
you want to do a Mouseketeer roll call there?
Well, I can read off who's on, or what are you proposing? I haven't watched the Musketeers. I apologize.
The show starts out by going, there's Jimmy and Susie.
All right, boy. Okay, so we have Dawn Bolas. I'm gonna mess up some names. I apologize. Lori, is it Earing?
It's Earig.
Earig. And Sherilyn Rushton.
Yep.
We have Abby Ostello.
Etzel.
Edsel. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize up front. Kathy McIntyre, and Danny Breer, Helen Charoff, and Susan Mostowy. Did I miss anybody? Okay, cool. Well, Danny, the floor is yours, and I have up on. Oh, and for those, it looks like many people are sharing my screen. If you're not, there is a link in the email that I sent out yesterday or the day before with a link to be able to view my screen. You're more than welcome to do that. And I just have a few slides that may help as we go along. So Danny, the floor is yours.
Great, Bill. Thank you very much, and thanks for that kickoff. As we go through this, you guys will appreciate how great Bill is at running these meetings. He's the best meeting runner in the world as far as I'm concerned, which if I had a little plaque to give him, I would. In any case, let's take it at a high level. This is our first cut at really a mission statement, to provide students with opportunities to develop creative problem-solving and problem identification techniques through inventing, innovating, and entrepreneurial activities, leading to greater consideration of STEM careers in high school and college. Let's talk about the STEM connection here for a second. I had a great conversation with a Silicon Valley CMO on Saturday, and what she was pointing out, she said, a lot of kids that do inventing do it because they didn't want to do the whole STEM thing, and they're just tinkerers and they're makers and they put things together, and that's what they are. And so certainly, in order to get the path to invention doesn't have to go through STEM. Our approach has been to tie ourselves to STEM as an enhancement and an extension of the STEM model, because that provides a nice continuum between STEM and invention and entrepreneurship, which we'll be adding on in later years. And that framework, which we call STEMI, is a real foundational aspect of what we're talking about here for our organization. So the National Invention Convention is a program of the STEMI Coalition. We're all the STEMI Coalition, and it's going to be held May 20th to 21st at the USPTO. Helen and I flew down and met with the USPTO staff a week ago. We had a great meeting with them yesterday just to go over the terms, conditions, and all that sort of stuff that we have to go and sign on the dotted line and everything else. So the facility, so Bill, why don't you go on, you went backwards on a slide. Did you want to go forward? Another one?
Go forward?
Oh, that's it?
What are you looking for?
There you go. So the event itself serves to really celebrate the best of the students that are going through the program, all of our programs across the U.S. I think, as we've mentioned to you, that the goal of what we're putting together here is not to create a really overbearing, thick national organization, but rather to create very robust state organizations and try to where those of you who wish to expand your state organizations can do that, and where you don't want to, and there are other people in the state that want to do that, great. But the goal here is to try to get the money and the programming as close to the students as possible. And so that we see the event, its purpose as acting as a showcase where all of our programs can show what's going on with these great students, and can also allow them to serve as role models as well as incentives for those that are coming up through the program that either can't go to the event yet because they're not old enough, or because they are going to be coming in later years. So it's also going to, in a big way, serve as a demonstration to the government and to other people like that, education, corporate America, that we're capable of doing what we want to do. And that is a very important part of this, because I think a lot of times we have these conversations with people in government and education like, oh, well, we've heard people wanting to do something like this before, and it never went anywhere, and things like that. So what we're really trying to work through here is biting off an apple that we can actually get our mouth around and take a bite out of, and show people that we're capable of launching this and building other programs on top of this, and that we're well supported in corporate America, education, and government along the way. So we have been meeting with the Department of Commerce, Department of Education, with some early conversations with people in like OSTP, the Office of Science Technology Policy at the White House, some people on Capitol Hill, as well as major corporations. And obviously major corporations, we believe, are going to shell out the funding to allow us not only to do the event, but also to grow all your state programs. Bill?
Well, thank you. I'm sorry?
I can always make a little noise like ding or something to change the volume.
Yeah, we'll have to come up with something. Sure. I did hear somebody chime in. Has someone else joined us that hasn't introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Sonia.
Hey, Sonia, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's hop into, and please, if you are on mute, feel free to take your phone off mute at this point. We'd really love to have an open discussion about the event format. We're looking at, just to back up, we're looking at a 2-day event going from Friday, May 20th to Saturday, May 21st. And what we're really thinking about is, what's the programming and what can be the various components. And maybe to lay the stage a little bit, we probably see having the sort of actual judged part of the event more than likely on Saturday, and having some content that would be of interest that sort of aligns with the sort of 4 core purposes that are laid out in this event purposes text, to celebrate, to showcase, to provide role models, and to create incentives for those coming up. And so the goal really of the programming is sort of how do we support those objectives. Just so you have a little sense of the space, this is an image of the front of the USPTO building, so it's a really impressive space. And Danny and Helen, feel free to chime in here. The event would be in the atrium area, and again, Danny and Helen have been to the space. Maybe you want to give a quick thumbnail of what we're looking at here, so that we have some context.
Sure. If you go back one slide, Bill, that big center facade, glass facade there, is the front of what you're going to look at in the next picture. You'll see in the back of it. So go one. So that you can see that in the back there, that you walked in those doors, and there's the upper atrium and the lower atrium here. And underneath the upper atrium is a big auditorium that can seat 450 people. And in the upper atrium to the left, you also have the National Inventors Hall of Fame, which is a very nice space. Not that big, but it's a nice space with a little theater in it to show movies and stuff. And so it's an opportunity for us to maybe have some more exclusive meetings, maybe some media meetings or some other things like that there. And then on the bottom floor, off to the left, you can't see it, there's a little coffee shop. And then you can see all the little tables there for the coffee shop. And then back further on the left is a big cafeteria. On the right, you've got the Global IP Academy, which is the USPTO training academy for patent attorneys and patent officials from around the world. They come there and they take classes. And there are a lot of boardrooms and classrooms in there that are available to us to be able to teach specific things. The one downside we have to work through is that the atrium, upper and lower atrium, the lower auditorium, the cafeteria, the coffee room, that's all available to the public, open and freely. To go into any of the classrooms off to the right, you have to pass through security. And so the idea how we would deal with 400 people going in and out through security is sort of a question. So it's a little bit left open that we might use the auditorium to do some content or some content off-site. In any case, that's one of the considerations we have to deal with in dealing at a government facility. Any other pictures, Bill?
No, I just put these 2 on. Helen, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that from looking at this photograph and having been there last Monday, this photograph really does not do it justice. I mean, when you are in that upper atrium, maybe it's the height of the building, but it seems to give you much more space to the right and left sides of those columns as well, so that when Danny and I eyeballed it last Monday, there was definitely a sense that, wow, you could really fit a lot of judging circles of kids in this area, and then the area below extends way underneath the top atrium. The cafeteria is really expansive. I mean, we came away from this just totally wowed by the beauty and expansiveness of this venue to bring off exactly what we are all looking to bring off. And I want to add, I wasn't on at the beginning of the call, but I had goosebumps that everybody is on this call. I mean, I just think that this has been such a long time coming, and just having everybody that's participating in this and looking at this venue and projecting toward next May, my breath is really taken away. So, but anyway, getting back to the logistics, I think there's lots and lots of room, and it's going to be just a very fantastic venue that the USPTO is providing for us.
Cool. Well, actually, Helen,
used a term there that I want to explain to everyone. She used a term called judging circles. This is a proposal from us, Connecticut, but certainly we can do it a different way. But in Connecticut, the way we do judging at our event is we have a U of roughly 3 8-foot tables. I think there's actually 2 8-foot tables on the end, so maybe 2 8s and then 2 8s on the sides. In that U, there are 10 inventors that put their displays and their inventions, and the judges judge them in that judging circle, and it's peer review. So the kids pitch to the other kids, and the kids ask each other questions, and the judges engage the kids in a discussion so that they learn the process of trying to evaluate ideas in the same way that the judges do. And the judges, which are usually 3 to 4 judges per judging circle, will then keep notes and tabulate their results and pick winners at the end of the judging circle. Judging circles usually last about an hour and a half, allowing each kid about 10 minutes to go through and give their presentation and answer questions. I'd love to hear at some point later on when we talk about actual floor plans and everything and the judging process, how other people do judging, and see if there's a better way to do that. But anyway, I just want to explain the term judging circles that Helen brought up.
Cool. Well, why don't we segue to actually talking about, it may make sense to sort of talk about the days a little bit separately, but we have Friday that is kind of open now in terms of what we can do. There's space here at the USPTO to do a variety of things, from education events to sort of a mini expo type event of vendors or service providers of some kind, topics of interest or whatnot, to sort of educational topics, and Saturday being probably a little bit more certain in terms of what we need to do, simply because that's the day that sort of the judging and the student presentations will go on. But does anyone have any thoughts in terms of what might be really attractive and motivational for your students in terms of content that they'd like to have coming out of a national event? Yes.
Bill, before we get in there, can I just make one comment about transportation? The way we're envisioning it right now, but it's open for discussion, is that people would use Thursday to travel down to D.C. and be in hotels on Thursday night, and so we'd be able to get started off with one group on Friday morning, and then get done by about 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and that would allow all the East Coast people possibly and some of the airline people to travel back, and some may stay over on Saturday night and travel back on Sunday. But the idea is that first thing Saturday morning, the cafeteria would be open here to serve breakfast to everybody, bacon, eggs, pancakes type of thing, and that we could get going bright and early, so we'd really truly have the whole day of everybody to do with whatever we would like, and we can go as late into the evening as we'd like, recognizing that the kids have a long day on the floor the next day to do their presentation. So just wanted to note that, Bill.
Yep, that's great. So this is, please, would love to hear your thoughts and comments about content. So does anyone want to start off and share some ideas?
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
What are the ages involved? Like, our personal state invention convention is 4th through 8th grade, and the 8th graders, or even high school, if those ages are involved in the national one, people are going to be interested in very different things than 4th graders would be.
It's a good point. And if you wouldn't mind, could you, because we're getting familiar with each other, if you wouldn't mind just saying your name when you're making comments, that'd be great.
Sure. Abby Etzel.
Oh, thanks, Abby. Okay. Danny, do you want to take that one?
So at this point, what we've got is a lot of stakes in the ground, and they're really for the group to validate. The general idea, what we thought that there's a certain age where it doesn't make sense for someone to fly across the U.S. to send their kids to Washington, D.C., or a kindergartner going to the USPTO to compete, especially given the sort of the quality and nature of kindergartner inventions doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so we figured that roughly, we can argue about where the cutoff is, but K through 5 could take part in an online competition, be judged online, and have the winners announced here, but they would not actually attend. And then 6 through 12 would actually physically attend. But that's a proposal, and I'd love to hear people's thoughts if they think that makes sense, or if it's 5th grade and above, 6th grade and above, 7th grade and above, 4th grade and above. I'm a startup person. I'm not an educator, so I rely on those people who have taken a lot of these kids on field trips and know where the actual good age cutoff is. So I'll put it back to the floor.
Abby, do you have a thought on that?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. No, it's a good question for sure. Does anyone else have a thought in terms of a logical break?
This is Kathy from New Hampshire. Past May, I brought kindergarten through 5th grade to the Connecticut program, and they presented there. And they went with their families, and I would have to say they were very, very, it was a great experience for all of them, and they worked very well together. And I would think that we need to think of going a little bit lower than 6th grade, because I think they have a lot to offer and a lot to gain from this as well.
Is there a point at which you'd cut off, Kathy?
I would have to know better as to how the 2 days are going to be done before I could say, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. But seeing some of the ideas that they present and how well they can do and coming with their family, I think it's something we need to consider.
Sure. That's a good point. Other thoughts on sort of the age bracketing?
So this is Dawn, and
Yep.
I had a question for Helen. With the Connecticut Invention Convention, what age group do you normally target, and is that kind of a model? Do you normally target younger than 6th grade, or what grade are you normally targeting?
Helen?
K
She might
through
step away
5.
from Helen.
Hello?
The program right now is K through 8 in terms of the actual finals that we have. But we have a 9 through 12 program that's geared towards, we call it Next Step Inventors, which are the kids that really want to pursue the entrepreneurial side of their inventions and really go and take a shot at filing patents and doing some preliminary discussions with mentors and possibly getting some money and trying to take it to a next level. We don't define what that next level is, but so K through 8 is what we do in Connecticut right now. Helen, you back?
Okay, that was kind of one of the things, and this is Dawn again. I was just trying to think about what we know works from Connecticut is that the students in that age level are really into it, and they're very engaged, and they've got kind of we've got something to point to and know how it works. And what I wonder is kind of thinking about how kids by 8th grade have thought about whether they will or will not, whether they're good at STEM or whether they're good at math, or kind of all of these decisions that are kind of made by 8th grade. I just wonder if there's a way to kind of develop it in such a way that we don't, it might be that if we opened it up a little bit younger and people actually wanted to come, then over time we could grow it into targeted more toward those older students. But if most of the programs around the country are targeted at middle school currently, then upper elementary and middle school, then is it going to be hard for us to get high schoolers kind of on board and engaged right off the bat?
It's a valid point, Tony.
This is Lori, also at the University of Iowa, and our Invent Iowa program, I can get you the exact numbers if they might help inform the decision, but it's a much stronger program at the elementary level, and kids start to fall off in the middle school level and aren't competing right now in Invent Iowa at the high school level.
Mm.
This is Abby again, and sorry, go ahead.
Kathy
No,
from New Hampshire.
Go ahead, Abby.
In South Carolina, like I said, ours is 4th through 8th grade, and actually the past 3 years, our overall grand champion has been a 4th grader. We see much bigger numbers in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade than we do the 7th and 8th grade, so I'm wondering, if you guys have a point that maybe the cutoff needs to be maybe 8th or 9th or 10th grade instead of going all the way through high school.
Sherilyn chiming in. Yeah. Sherilyn chiming in from Ohio, at least under my tenure, 18 years. We were a K-8 program, and I mapped, before I stepped down and Veronica led the charge, I mapped out where the sweet spot was in Ohio, at least. And from an educational teacher point of view, it was mandate to bring an inventive, creative problem-solving curriculum in at the 3rd grade level on the teacher side, and also the numbers reflected that the participation would be about 10% K through 2, we bucketed it, and then about 60% of the whole ball of wax were 3rd graders and 4th graders. Over time, that bucket traveled, meaning the kids aged up, and the 3rd and 4th graders would come in the next year because they had learned the process, gotten their sea legs, and then went back into the program, 5th and 6th. By 7th and 8th grade, it's borderline not cool, so it dropped off as well. But similarly to some of the other programs on the phone today, the grand prize winners, over my 18 years, we had 1 8th grader, 4 3rd graders, about 5 or 6 4th graders. I did have a kindergartner. The younger, in my experience, they're much more astute than they're given credit for, and I would tend to skew, as if we're going to cut off at the youth angle, I would go at least to 4th grade, probably 3rd, if not lower. That's the Ohio perspective.
So let me get a question for you, Danny. What's the downside in being wide open? In other words, if it were anyone from K through 12, and you'll get data over the first couple of years to see where you're drawing.
So let me try to put some numbers to it and let you know the dirty underbelly of the budget side of this. We're shooting to have 300 kids and 60 adult chaperones. And the idea was that adult chaperones, you'd have a 1 to 5 ratio. And my concern is that the lower you get, the more you get towards a 1-to-1 chaperone. And, if everybody were paying their own way to go here, then that would be fine. We've sort of laid out that we feel in order to ensure that everybody gets here the first several years, many years, that we're going to be doing cooperative fundraising with each of the states to raise the money to make sure that there's money to pay full expenses for them to attend. And so it becomes a monetary issue at a certain point. Right now, our travel and expenses cost for the food and everything, it's about $240,000. You get 300 kids and the adults there, which if you take 20 states, you're an average of about $12,000 or so per state that we have to raise to fly that there. If you bring it down lower and you've got a parent that wants to come and you're paying their way, it just ups the price because each parent's an airfare or a bus ride or whatever. it's food to pay and hotel rooms and that sort of stuff. So it's that's the consideration. And the other consideration was, would a parent want their kindergartner to go long distance for something like this? Does that make sense? The teachers in the room, I would really love to hear you speak up and tell us, about school field trips and overnights and things like that. Because I just don't know how this really works in a school environment. And do they have restrictions on lower ends? Because somebody has to take these kids on an airplane or in a bus going the distance. And the problem is that when you're going from a local level to a state level, a teacher is bringing 3, 4, 5, 20 kids or whatever, but the teacher knows the kids and school trip, it's one thing. When you go up to a national level, you're likely to have, let's say you send 5 winners, you've got 5 winners possibly from all over your state. They're not under one specific chaperone. What is our obligation on the chaperone side? Can we say, well, we're going to send one teacher and it's going to be a volunteer from the state organization or whatever, and they're going to oversee 5 kids that they have no real relationship to? Is that okay?
And can you guys hear me now? This is Helen.
We can,
yeah. Yeah, I could hear you before, but you couldn't hear me. My juice ran out. And is someone with a kindergartner or even a first or second grader going to be willing to entrust them to a chaperone to travel to D.C.? Or will opening it up to K through 3 necessarily mean that now we have to build in the parent layer for those specific kids?
This is Dawn from University of Iowa chiming in, and I'm listening, and I think what you're basically kind of identifying is that we've got to focus on kids that can get there, like Danny was talking about, with some type of a ratio of a chaperone so that more kids can be impacted. And that's just my opinion. And part of it is kind of a branding in terms of what we're doing on a local, regional, statewide basis and targeting those elementary and middle school students. Then by the time you're in middle school and we identify that this age student is able and can travel with a chaperone teacher and be part of like that 1-to-5 ratio, then that's kind of the big thing and kind of cool for those kids to be able, now they can stay in it long enough to be able to possibly make that trip to DC, and then potentially, grow it into, if you stay in it even further, what's the next special thing for those high school students when they are, what motivates them to stay in it and not have it be a middle school thing, but have it be extra cool at high school.
Yeah, they don't want to be grouped in. High schoolers certainly would not want to be grouped in with primary grades. And the other factor here is we really, we thought about this long and hard. We really want to reach teachers. I mean, teachers are the multiplier effect for us here in Connecticut. Parents are great. They're great cheerleaders. Their kid graduates out of the program, and in many cases, most cases, they're gone. It's the teachers who stay on with the program who, like many of you, have been doing this for years. And the kind of content that potentially would be valuable, like about patenting or trademarking or other intellectual property issues, is going to have much more value to teachers who are teaching this program over and over again than to parents who have an interest in their child being recognized and winning awards, but are not the multiplier effect that we're looking for year after year.
So, Danny, a quick question. So, at what point do you hit the 5-to-1 or the 1-to-5 ratio? Is it 3rd grade or 4th grade, or as you scale up in age, when do you think you safely get to that ratio?
I think that's a question for the people with experience in the audience. I put that's stake in the ground in the budget right now. The budget can change. I mean, we can raise more money, right? It's just a matter of us, all of us, spending more time in front of people just asking for some more money. At the end of the day, I don't think schools have budgets to send their kids to these events. Does anybody have any knowledge differently on that? I mean, someone early on said, well, don't the schools just pay for that? And I don't think they do they? Anyone?
Does anyone have experience with that?
I think about all these inner city schools where two of my friends teach in
Hold on,
inner city
Danny.
schools. And
Hold on, Danny. Susan, go ahead.
Hi there. A similar program is the National History Day, and my experience is that the schools do not pay for finalists to go to D.C.
So I think it's incumbent upon. I've got it built into our business model and our business planning that we're going to work with each of you guys to go out and raise the corporate funds in your state to get all expenses paid for your kid to go to D.C. And so if the number's bigger, the number's bigger. It's hard. Maybe we need to go out and query some more teachers to understand where the best break is and what the best market is here. I think Helen's point is really correct that we would really rather not be paying for parents to come. We would rather be paying for teachers to come because we get the better longevity bang for the buck over time with the teachers doing this year after year after year and hoping that their kids win so they get to go to D.C.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Other thoughts on this in terms of the right age bracketing?
This is Abby again.
Yeah.
As far as the ratio of one chaperone to 5 kids, I guess I'm having trouble understanding how you came up with that number, because what I thought it would be was that each, say, our state invention convention, we send 5 winners from our state invention convention. They don't all have the same teacher. So whether it's teacher or parent, I don't know that there's one person that, no matter what age they are, that those parents would be comfortable sending with somebody they don't know. So you have 5 kids from different schools from different parts of the state. Who do you send with them?
Danny? So I mean, that's an open question, Abby. It's a really good point. The thinking was that I know that I would often go places on trips. When I was a teenager, I was big in the Boy Scouts, and we would go places, and I would have no clue who the head was because we were going as a state, and they drew people from every troop, and there was just a new leader. And so my experience in the past has been that's not an unusual situation, especially in like travel teams and other stuff like that. But again, I defer to some of the teachers in the mix. Teachers, I think you always allow any parent that wants to pay their way to come is welcome to pay their way to come and come along for the ride. We're not in any way limited on the upper end here, except we start to get a little bit large in the auditorium. I think we get 600 or 700 people in the auditorium. I said 450 before. It's actually 600 or 700 people. So we've got a lot of upside to our the number of people that can show up. Now, but as Susan said about National History Day, I know when our kids went, a teacher went from the school, but they had 3 winners from the school, and so that always made sense.
Well, if you look at the ISEF model, for instance, here in Connecticut, now granted that's high school kids, the statewide coordinator, who is known to all the teachers and all the parents, he goes. There's probably 2 or 3 other chaperones that are fairly well known in the ISEF organization that also go, and maybe 1 or 2 teachers go. So I think we need to be flexible about who would actually accompany the kids. And the younger they are, maybe there's one or two parents there that, that take on the responsibility to go because they themselves don't want to let their kids go by themselves. But I think that's surmountable in the sense that you can find people in your statewide organization that you can feel that you've worked with for a number of years, that you would feel fairly comfortable. Like Kathy, for instance, if you were bringing a group of kids from New Hampshire, would you feel that you could probably get parents to co-chaperone with you, but maybe not every single parent of every single child?
I think I possibly could get some, but the highest participation in our New Hampshire program is 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And we only go up to 8th, and the 6th, 7th, and 8th is a very small participation. So we would be somewhat limited if it was only on the upper level. And again, it's students from all across the state, and we come together once a year, so who would be the chaperone would be totally unfamiliar. So I think we would have to have some parents along in order for it to be a possibility at all.
So does anybody have a suggestion of an analog school program here that we could call and talk to the organizers or talk to some of the schools about this? Like History Day is a good example. ISEF's another one. So I'll tell you what, I'll commit to the group that I will call around and try to start getting some information from some other people on this matter. If we can probably leave it at that, regardless of the age, I mean, regardless of the number of chaperones, number of chaperones is largely just an economic issue. In terms of the age groups, that's my guess would be that we have a bubble at 5th and 6th grade is our largest groups that take part. That there's probably just going to be a lot more 5th and 6th graders at this national convention. It doesn't mean that we have to have the same number of kids in every single grade, and we might just offer more awards based on the number of kids that are participating in each grade. So it would not make sense for us to short shrift the largest part of our population, in my mind, by trying to have equal numbers of kindergartners on up. We don't do that in Connecticut. We tell the schools you can send 10% of your participants up the ladder, and so they get to pick which of their 10% they send. And so if they got a lot more 5th and 6th graders, then they're likely going to send a lot more 5th and 6th graders up to nationals, up to state finals.
This is Lori from the University of Iowa. I think an analog that's not perfect, but maybe a model we can draw from in thinking about this is that we have a lot of examples of high school programs that draw statewide and have, someone that takes a group of high school kids. But for elementary school kids, I think our analog there is summer camp. So you take your kids, you drop them off, you leave them at camp for a week, and you come and get them. So it's different in that there's travel involved. We've got planes, trains, buses, hotels, and whatnot. But I think there's precedent for people dropping their kids off and trusting them to someone else for an extended period of time that we can draw from.
But some kids, this may be their first trip away and first overnight away from home if you're talking about kindergartners, right? And
so
yeah, I think
absolutely. I think there still is a minimum age limit.
Lori, what do you think that sort of right age is? What in your mind makes the most sense?
Oh, I think that's a really difficult question that depends on the kid. We work with kids in residential programs from 6th grade on up, and sometimes we have high school students who don't make it through our opening and end up going home with their parents. And other times we have 6th graders who are just all ready to go and say, see ya, to their parents at the curb. So,
gotcha.
I think there's a wide variation based on kids' previous experience and their disposition.
So it looks like we need to, and it sounds like Annie's going to do this, is gather some more data. And what we'll do is probably survey out to you to get some feedback, and then we'll finalize what the age bracketing will be. Does that sound like a reasonable plan, Danny and Helen?
Yeah, I think so.
Does to me.
Okay.
But what I'm hearing, let me just reconfirm one thing I'm hearing. I'm hearing from people on the phone is that they're not expecting that high schoolers would be a big part of this initial event. Is that correct?
Yes.
New Hampshire has no one to send at this point from our program. It would have to come from some other source if it's high school.
Okay. Ohio as well.
Great.
Same
Yeah,
with South
Ohio
Carolina.
as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's good news. That actually helps in some ways because, like you said, we're not trying to keep high schoolers as happy as kindergartners.
So if we can't,
the impact here is also. Go ahead, Bill.
I was gonna flip us over to talk. Actually, get a little bit of time in on the event. I'm a little sensitive to our time here. So let's just assume for the moment that we're not necessarily trying to address high schoolers, which, this is still flexible, but that we're somewhere, say, roughly between third grade and eighth grade. What kind of programming do you think would be interesting for your students on Friday? And, again, the range could be everything from workshops to demonstrations to exhibits to even doing some touring of the Capitol. What types of things would they walk away from getting good value out of?
This is Abby. Oh, go ahead.
This is Helen. I've been to the Maker Faire down in New York at the Hall of Science, and I see a lot of young people, kids, probably ages 4th grade through high school, circulating through areas where there's different kinds of stuff available for making, whether it's our Arduinos or whether it's, other kind of materials or a sort of 3D printers maybe, stuff that can help them with actually going from imagination to prototyping on the kinds of ideas that they have. So at least from my small sample of thousands of people at the Maker Faire, there does seem to be an interest on kids' parts in how can I build stuff if I have an idea around building it.
That's great. Cool. Someone else.
This is Abby, and actually what I was going to say goes right along in with that is recently we've started sort of a separate judging. It's kind of like, like Boy Scouts do the car derby where you have a block of wood and you have to make it go and whoever goes the fastest, but you have to use these certain parameters. Well, we sort of do that as like a convention inside of our convention that is judged separately, so the kids can either enter or they don't if they want to, and they don't have to if they don't want to. Where they're given, we provide the materials, and they're given a couple hours. Say, this is a problem that needs solving. These are the materials you have to use it. What can you make from this that would solve the issue?
That sounds excellent. That's really, and I was actually, as you were talking too, I was even thinking that there is probably some level of ice breaking and or warming up that we want the kids to go through, even some sort of forced interaction where they maybe get to know each other a little bit, and having a project may well serve to do that too. So that sounds like a really interesting idea. What other ideas, folks?
Exchanging pins or exchanging buttons. I know that's sort of a universal thing at Scout Jamborees and things like that, and it sort of mixes people up enough to say, hey, where are you from? What are you working on? So I love that idea because that's really one of the byproducts of doing something like this is throwing kids together who are the same kind of thinkers and doers but don't know each other.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Carolyn jumping in, one of the other things that we've done in Ohio actually was inspired by late buses, and I had 600 kids and waiting for 300 more. And we didn't have any materials, and we didn't have any really anything to work with. We were an auditorium. And along the lines of inventing on the fly, I yanked about 4 kids on each side of the auditorium up, and we had the audience throw out a word, and 4 different words on a whiteboard, and those teams were challenged with making a rap. We gave them 5 minutes to invent a rap using those words, and it was like, invention convention, it was quite intriguing, and it was quite fun, and they had audience participation, and one of the teams actually split the audience in 2 and actually started out by having the left-hand side of the auditorium go boom, boom, and then the other one went psh, so they even, invented their, and you had an auditorium of 600 kids, essentially 2 teams of 4 competing, using just even words. And to Helen's point, the maker movement is huge, and maker spaces, and it can be, one other time we gave every young person a blank white Hanes t-shirt, and that was part of their welcome kit, and they designed their own t-shirt, which in this case would be able to incorporate what state they were from, whatever they wanted to tell, and they wore that shirt around Friday evening, and so it was almost like a walking billboard of here, hello, I'm from New Hampshire, this is my, they identified themselves in that way. It was interactive and also identification, but point being, you don't need much as far as an activity and of kids that don't even realize that that's an invention, because music is, music, art, design, all of that kind of stuff, and it is an icebreaker. It's kind of scary, asking kids to create a rap, but they're all quite good, and they're all, there's all kinds of interactive, getting to know you kind of things that you can do with little to no materials.
Well, it wouldn't be scary for us, so that's, yes. Yes, Danny.
So I've got a high-level question. I guess we have all these buses that are going to be here that have taken the kids to D.C., and we're paying for them to sit for 2 days. We have the opportunity, if we wanted to put the kids on the buses and go into downtown D.C. to go to the Smithsonian or something like that. So a question that we have here is it desired that we try to arrange programming that's the entire day at the USPTO, or do we seek to try to go off-site to go do something? Because just the logistics of getting kids onto buses and off the buses and tracking them and getting across town and DC traffic and all that sort of stuff, there's logistics involved there, and it's a different animal. And so I'd love people's feedback about whether we thought that we could entertain them enough and educate them enough all day in one facility, or do we need to take them somewhere?
This is Dawn from University of Iowa, and I wanted to jump in. I had someone come into my office and pulled me away for a few minutes, so I am hoping that my 2 comments make sense. One, I love the idea of getting them out of the building and kind of into D.C. and possibly working with U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to, identify companies that have actually taken a new IP technology and commercialized that, so that they might have an opportunity to kind of see, well, where can you go with your IP into kind of the private sector, and also to really highlight, like, where is IP is everywhere, and places that they wouldn't necessarily have thought about it, but that it exists. I love the example of kind of thinking about it from a music point of view. I think someone was talking about the rap, and just thinking from a music point of view, stuff that's really relevant to kids that age. But the other, I think someone had asked whether there was anything else that we wanted to consider having going on at the same time that they'd be showcasing. And one idea would be to do some type of vetting of the different projects or inventions that are coming to that national level, and to give students the option to actually come and pitch their invention, pitch their concept and invention for some type of kind of Shark Tank type of event where they would actually have the opportunity to look at, one, maybe getting some funds to help support their commercialization of their invention, but then two, in addition to maybe seed capital, looking at like what kind of support could we give them, you know, legal services for a year or something along those lines where we're actually kind of helping to foster students taking their concepts beyond a showcase. So I'm sorry if my comments aren't exactly aligned with the dialogue. I just wanted to make sure those thoughts were thrown in.
Oh, those are great, Dawn. Thank you. Let's see. We've got 5 minutes or a little bit less. Are there thoughts on Danny's comments? Maybe just a rapid fire. If we could just maybe go around the horn, and maybe I'll start. Dawn is in favor of getting them into DC, at least have some experience there, ideally with, sounds like with a company. Lori, your thoughts, all on USPTO campus in Alexandria or a field trip to DC at some point?
I think a field trip to DC would be valuable, and I think as far as workshops for the kids in class, working with patent, IP, and entrepreneurship might build our brand to what we're moving kids towards in high school.
Cool. Thank you. Cheryl, Lynn, your thoughts?
I think taking them outside is with merit, good idea. I think if it goes to 1 or 2 or 3 identifiable and therefore parentally, so you won't get a parent pushback as long as it's contained to 1 or 2 or 3 places that the kids might go. That'll avoid parent pushback of not knowing where in DC their kids are. And if it can also go up the alley of, as was mentioned, to some place where they might perhaps, what I've done a lot here in another program is the kids have had workshops on their elevator pitch. And we called it, we did a very small version where kids learned, we called it Guppy Tank. And some of my colleagues who are DCs and whatnot, we staged in the evening. I don't know if they do it now in Columbus now, but we had kids bring in their inventions in the evening. So we did a Friday, Saturday, and we had they could go learn how to do an elevator pitch. They could learn different things, you know, and I think it's relevant, and it also does get them starting to think about that next entrepreneurial step. Yes.
That's great. Cool. Thank you. Abby, again, rapid fire, DC or all self-contained?
I think going into DC would be good because I think for a lot of these kids, this will be the first time and possibly the only time that they'll get to see the city.
Great. Okay. Kathy, your thoughts?
I agree with her. I believe if you're in Washington, D.C., you need to get to see some of what you've done.
Gotcha. Alexandria is probably not as exciting. And I'll follow up with Danny, Helen, Susan, and Sonia later. So we've pretty much done a beautiful job in this hour of getting lots of conversation going and kind of stirring the pot a bit. We're again planning to do this every other week, and so we have set a calendar invite. I know that some of the folks that have come on in the last few days haven't gotten this, but I'll circulate it with everybody. But the thought was to do our next call on a week from today at the same, or 2 weeks from today at the same time. Is there anybody that has a problem in general with this time? When we did our doodle, it seemed like it, at least for today, worked out the best for everybody. But we did Tuesdays every other week at 2 Eastern. Does anybody have a heartburn with that? Of course, the people that are here were less likely to have a heartburn with that. But, that is the challenge of this survey. But so why don't we plan on this, and we'll certainly ask those not here if we need to switch. But please, this is your group, and we want this to be something that the whole idea of a steering committee is that we all have our hand on the helm here. And so, please, you're among friends, and we appreciate your opinions. We respect it very much, and we really want you engaged and certainly a strong part of the process. But what we'll do, and just for those that weren't on at the beginning, we have been recording the call, so this will be available for anyone to listen to later, and we'll certainly share notes, and I know Danny's going to be doing some follow-up work as well, so we'll have a follow-up email out in the next day or two. But let's plan on Tuesday, October 6th at 2, and I guess just one last thing to ask. Is there anyone that came on later that didn't get a chance to say hello or that they're on the call? Cool. Danny, any parting words?
I would just like to echo what Helen said at the beginning of the call. There's several hundred years worth of experience on the phone here in doing invention and entrepreneurship education and programming, and we all should be in awe about everything that's going on around here. I've been amazed. I've been talking to some people who have been running programs for 20 years, 26 years on their own. We'll talk to a woman down in Tennessee, been doing 26 years on a $2,000 budget, all on her own. And I was like, wow. And she's got 450 kids that show up every year. So, you know, it's an amazing group here, and I hope that you keep coming, and that it seems like we've got a great start here, and I look forward to talking to you in 2 weeks.
Thank you all very much, and please reach out if you have any questions or any additional thoughts, but you'll hear from us shortly in terms of follow-up. Thank you. Have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey,
Bye-bye.
just to clarify, will you be sending a meeting invite?
Yes, I'll actually send a meeting invite in a few minutes for the 6th.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Great conversation.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye now.